Welcome to the Hearts of Men podcast, a podcast to inspire men on their healing journey and give practical tools to use in everyday life for mental and emotional support. I'm your host, Aaron Cartwright. All right, welcome back to the Hearts of Men podcast. I've got my next guest. He's a very good friend of mine. His name is Rob Yates. For those who don't know him, he is currently a coach and photographer. And the reason I got him on is because he has a similar background in ways to me. He was in the fitness industry. He had a very successful gym. I wasn't a bodybuilder, but he was a bodybuilder. He was in the military. He's had a very colorful life, but he's actually come through and he's grown a lot as a man. So that's why I wanted to bring him on. And he's an inspiration to men. So I want to get his story out there for other men and even boys who might listen in, so they might get some value from him. So thanks for coming on, Rob.
Yeah, my pleasure. Always a pleasure to spend time with you. We've been missing you a little bit on your travels.
I've been missing you a lot too. Yeah, we need big man hugs. Can we start from the beginning? So who was Rob growing up? What was Rob like as a kid?
I grew up in the country in Whyalla, so I suppose we had the benefit of being on the ocean and having the saltbush at the background. So we spent a lot of time, fishing, shooting, camping, out at the shack, riding dirt bikes, doing all that stuff out, catching sleepy lizards on BMXs and stuff. So we had a very good country upbringing. I had two very loving parents and a younger sister. My dad and mum, although they worked really, really hard, we found ourselves not poor, but definitely working class, where money was a little bit of a struggle. Growing up, I didn't really realize that was the case maybe until we got into high school, and then the divide between the haves and the have-nots was quite clear. So I started to see the world very, very differently, probably from that point onwards. And it was very pivotal in molding, who I ended up becoming when I spent my whole time focusing on those materialistic objects and having all the clothes and shoes and, being the party person and all the bodybuilding stuff. It all stems, when I think about it and sit back, I'm like, oh, wow. It all kind of stems from, needing that outward validation and not receiving it as a younger child. So I suppose that's where it starts. Yeah.
How old were you when that divide started?
I remember what happened is that I was playing Stars of football, and we used to have billets come in from, and our billets were coming in from Adelaide, and we would to swap people. Obviously, they'd come and stay at our house for a week and play footy carnivals. The next week or the next month, we would go down to Adelaide and we would swap homes. I remember I was listed next to a dude called Jake something. I'm not sure what it was. And when he actually got off the bus, they had a conversation and they actually swapped him. And he went to a family that was an affluent family in Whyalla. And I got a person that was working class like me, given to me, like another person. And I didn't really realize what happened until years later. But what they actually did is they swapped the rich kid out to go to a rich family, and they sent the working class kid to come with my family. And I suppose as a young person, all we're really looking for is to, make your parents proud. We just want to be accepted, in a particular group. We're just searching for our little place in the world, And I realized then that the place in the world was really divided between people that have money and people that don't have money, and they live their lives very, very differently to each other. So I suppose that really hurt my feelings. Like, I was like, oh, I didn't realize it at the time. And my parents explained it to me later with a little bit of like shame and guilt around what may or may not have happened in that circumstance. So yeah, I suppose it was a pivotal little moment, when you realize like, oh, fuck, they would rather send, would they be embarrassed to send him to me? Because my parents would have been beautiful parents to like all of my friends used to hang out at my parents' place because, mum used to drive us everywhere and like cook us stuff, and dad would always take us on adventures and stuff. So I don't know, I was never embarrassed of me or my parents, but like the outside world was telling me that, I wasn't good enough, in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. So then after that, what did that send you on? What was the trajectory of Rob's life after that? What did you start doing to fill that void of feeling not good enough for having not enough money?
I think if you look back, I was like the class clown at school, the one that used to always just be funny and doing stupid shit and stuff. But I look back now and it's not really who I am. And I look back and think, actually, I value learning and stuff like that. So it was weird that I didn't value that back then. And I was just trying to be noticed, I suppose. When I look back, I was quite a gifted sports person, and I was the athletics team like captain, and I obviously did all SATSARSA and everything like that to a pretty high level when we were younger. So I look back, and even today before this podcast, I was like, how do I actually label that? And I was like, I think I was probably the worst person, or not the worst person, but the lowest person in the most successful group. I don't really know how to like put that.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think they could discount me because you were good at footy and like you were good at sport, but you weren't like their families. You know what I mean? You didn't have a pool in the backyard. Your mum and dad didn't have a nice car. Like you didn't go on family holidays and stuff like that. And you wore probably clothes that were, not as nice as theirs. And you didn't have the $200 pairs of sneakers and stuff that they had. So it was, I just look back at all that and I'm like, fucking wow. Like I look in my adult life and I'm like, that's why I was like that. That's why those things become so important to me, is that I actually didn't have them growing up, or I thought that they were important, and whereas now I get to the point where I look at it and I'm like, oh, I did a photo shoot the other day in bare feet. That's how much I value shoes now, This is a very different like outlook. But back then, when you're judged by how you look and you really want to fit into those groups, that's everything. You know what I mean? All you want to do, like if you're a skatey kid, all you want to do is dress like a skatey and have all the cool shit so you can fit into that skatey group, If you're a sporty kid, you got to have the best footy boots, and you want to have, you don't want to be the one that doesn't, because a group at school and stuff like that growing up can be quite cruel, They can ostracize you quite quickly from that group from not having all the things,
Yeah, so it sounds like you were hanging on by a thread by being a good sports person. You were accepted into this group because you're great at sports, but you didn't have the money side of things. You're a bit of the poor kid.
Yeah,
So,
and it felt like that, Aaron. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
you always had this undertone of like, I'm here, but they don't fucking love me as much as the other kids. I don't get invited to some of the things they get invited to. Like you were there, but you weren't quite there. Like there was never that level of acceptance. You never felt like you were enough.
Yeah, yeah. Looking back, did you realize that at the time, or just you had no idea? It was
I had
just
no
like,
idea. Yeah. I had no idea.
yeah, yeah. So then what happened? So then you started like partying, and then I know because you end up going to the military. How did you end up going to the military? Like, what's like from
Yeah.
that age until the military? Like, what happened?
I was actually the youngest player to play A grade for my football team. So I was 14 at the time, and I remember and then going and drinking beers and stuff with them later, and just looking up to these big tattooed dudes that had like Monaros and SLR 5000 Tiranas and all that cool stuff, and they had a really hot chick under their arm and stuff. And I remember like at that point it was like, oh wow, like I need all those things. And I was doing army cadets at the time with like there's a kid down the road that I used to see him get in the car with his army gear on. And I asked him one day, like, what do you do? And he's like, oh, we get to shoot shit and we go out camping and we do orienteering and stuff with maps and stuff. And I'm like, fucking hell, that sounds like really interesting. I reckon I would like that. So I used to start going along with him, and his parents used to take me. So I suppose at about 15, I'd done that for a year and really enjoyed it. And I tried to apply for the military. I tried to go in as a trade because my dad was a mechanic and I was quite mechanically like minded. So I was trying to go in as a trade because they don't normally take you in normal entry to the military until you're 17. The reason I wanted to go into the military was really to not go down the road of being in a steelworking town and end up working like my dad. Like my dad, he worked hard. Like I've never seen a man work so hard for his family, but that's, you know, it was to his detriment. Like he wasn't happy and he always come home fucking dirty and whinging about work. And it was really like a negative place when he's on afternoons and night shifts. And it, you know, it wasn't like I didn't see working there as a beautiful experience that I wanted. You know, I kind of wanted to run away a little bit. I was like, well, I either end up there or I could leave and go travel. You know what I mean? So that was my options at the time. So I decided to, like, I tried to get in at 15. They said I was too immature. Tried to get in at 16, still immature. At that stage, I'd moved to Adelaide in with a group of friends, and we were living just a street back from the parade in Norwood. So we were like still sneaking into pubs at 16, you know, thinking we were cool, living on my own. And then at 17, I actually got in. So like off I went and told my parents that's what I was going to do. And I remember my dad at the time, because I was pretty much a bit of a pot smoking bum at that stage. You know, I was working and that, but wasn't really doing too much. I was at TAFE doing like a mechanical trade at TAFE, but not really taking it too seriously. And then I just left. I remember Dad saying at the time, "I'll see you in a week, mate," because he like, you know, he probably didn't think that I would be able to make something like that. It was probably out of anything that I'd done before, and he may have thought that I'd lacked the discipline and stuff to do it. But, you know, I actually fucking thrived in that environment. Like it was awesome. Joining at 17, I was the youngest person in my unit, and I was sleeping next to a bed to a 24-year-old, and all of the men and stuff in that group were all around 25 to 28 or 23 to 28, sorry, somewhere around there. So I was only a little baby, but they all took me under their wing. And where I had problems in particular areas getting my shit together, they all would come in and like help and just lift my standard up, you know? So I felt like I was like the young kid that they all liked and got along with them well, that they just took me under their wing. And like I said, I just thrived in that environment of structure and discipline and, you know, loved it. It was really based on fitness and how you can handle weapons and whether you can be trusted to be in stressful situations in groups. And actually I shone in all of that. I probably didn't have, well, what you could say, like my behavior wasn't always good, as in I was a bit of a rebel against like the rules and regulations. But again, you know, because I was actually good at my job and quite fit and a gifted footballer, I kind of got away, you know, with being maybe not so much of a barrack soldier, because out bush, you know, you had the skills and knowledge and tools to be like an asset to the team. So yeah, love that environment, totally thrived in that environment.
How did it feel to finally have men around you that embrace you like that?
Yeah. Well, I hadn't really thought about it until you mentioned it just then, but it was like the thing about military, you all go in, you're wearing a uniform, right? So it doesn't matter what shoes and stuff, it doesn't matter. And we all come from all different walks of life, so that we didn't know each other before. Like, so it didn't matter whether you were rich or poor or like what, like those normal social conditionings where you kind of get pushed out when you're young. It's not like that in the military. Like really, you're a group of brothers. It's a bit almost like a bikie game, you know, like you're actually together and you're like, there's this group of that have a common goal, and that's that brotherhood that brings them together. It makes them feel good. You know what I mean? And I suppose exceptionally good for people that didn't necessarily have that in their upbringing, whether they come from a dysfunctional family or whether they come from, you know, being, like not fitting in like I didn't fit in. Those particular groups would be a draw card to those people. You know, it's like you said, it's finally that time where you fit into some kind of structure where you feel like it's home, where you feel like you're safe, where you feel like you're supported by other men. It's a really nice feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so with that, like you started being embraced by other like brothers, like a brotherhood.
Yeah.
What did that push you to? Um, the benefits of that would have been, feeling amazing. But was there drawbacks to that also of like, did you do stuff possibly to keep that brotherhood, or like, tell me about the brotherhood, like the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah, I suppose military. I remember this particular thing during my IET training, like which is at Singleton because I was an infantry soldier. They had a thing called the knicker board, and it was a board where on Monday morning you go hang up all the pairs of knickers of all the girls that you slept with, and you would just like, who's the fucking champion on the weekend, you know? So it was all about the drinking and the womanizing was just, so this brotherhood was there, but it was celebrated in like such a negative way where everything was celebrated by drinking and partying. And, the harder you drank and the more stupid shit you did, like the more higher in that brotherhood that you tended to rose. And being good with women was definitely one of those traits that they, was held in such high esteem. So, of course, you went out into the world like that and thought that that was norm because of the environment you were in. Yeah.
Yeah. So then you started basing what a man is off that environment. Yeah, like this is how a real man is.
This is how, and I've been away on overseas trips where I've had married men, sleep with fucking Malaysian whores and shit like. It's just you've seen it all in there, and the problem is that although you know that your morals and values and ethics, you wouldn't necessarily act and behave in the same way. It's too much when you're in that environment to stand out on your own, and you're probably too scared to stand out on your own. You end up going along with things and patting dudes on the back for doing stupid shit because that's what the boys do, and you wanted that acceptance so bad that it takes over. It takes over what you feel like in here is actually right and wrong.
Yeah. And during that, did you know what was right and wrong? Like what, or did you block it out so much you had no idea?
I think everyone knows what's right and wrong. I don't believe when people say that they don't know. I think they know, they just don't listen to their intuition or their body, and they're too scared to probably stand up for what they believe in. They kind of just go along and with everything. I mean, times have changed a lot now. I see the younger men growing up now and it's very different, but I'm talking like 25 years ago when things were old school,
How did you deal with emotions? Did you have emotions in the military, like, or did you block them out? Like, what was emotions like in that environment?
Shut down. Yeah. Like it was just, that was the conversation. If you ever was struggling, it's like, keep up your faggot or fucking hurry up your pussy or, I'll fucking bash you if you don't like get your shit together. Like when you think of that, that's the language, like it was just horrible. But and even I've done like some work with on job sites. And I spent a couple of times in a couple of years in the mines and stuff as well. And
Oh,
language is similar, like it hasn't changed that much.
yeah,
Like men
yeah,
still speak to each other like that, and it's fucking horrible, like
yeah,
yeah, I
yeah,
just but that's what it is. Like you're just shamed from like, I mean, if we were injured and we had to go and report to the RAP, which is like your medical center, you're a fucking linger. You're a linger, mate. Fucking, you malingerer, like, and it's like, and you just copped it. Even you could have rolled your ankle in footy and be hardly able to fucking walk. But if you don't get up the next day and go, if you don't get up and go train, like you're a fucking linger, mate. You're a fucking piece of shit. Like it's just, it's real. It's a different environment, like it.
yeah.
And back then it was fucking hard. Like it was,
It's hardcore.
probably, yeah, it was hard. Yeah, it probably wasn't as hard as what it was for say Vietnam vets and stuff like that would have been tough, but we
Yeah, yeah,
definitely still got it. We still got it hard where discipline was discipline, and
yeah,
if you
yeah.
fucked up, you knew all about it. So
It makes sense because, like, if you do go to war, if you're in a war, being vulnerable with your emotions is probably not a good idea. So, like, it makes fucking sense in a way of like why it's like that. but
Yeah.
then you put that in real life and it's a fucking terrible idea. So
Yeah.
it's hard, you know?
I notice now, like, I can emotionally cut myself off. Like, if I feel threatened to that vulnerability, I can just
Yeah.
shut it off, and I could literally walk away from someone that I loved the day before and just have no feelings attached to it. Like, it's a real, but it's, you need to be like that in those environments. You need
Yeah.
to be able to do what you're told
Yeah.
without bringing in any of your values or morals or ethics. Like, you can't question anything, because they tell you run over there, like, and fucking start shooting at the people that are shooting at you. You'd be like, yeah, but that's unsafe.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
feel like it's like, if you do that, more people are going to die. Like,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you have to be able to put all that aside. And I suppose that's what they do. They break down that fragment of who you are and they build you up in this environment of like the brotherhood. And you actually like feel like I used to feel like I was fucking bulletproof. I used to go out with 3 or 4 mates and there wasn't a thing out there that I was scared of. Like, and that's a nice feeling. That's like, doesn't matter. Let's go out for fun. But if shit comes to us, fucking who cares? Bring it. We got you got like fit, strong boys that are trained to kill around you that are like weapons,
Yeah.
It's that kind of like feeling. It's addictive. It's a good feeling. I look back on it now and I can see, like you said, that now I've had to get out and assimilate myself back into normal society. It's been a process, of undoing all of those things that were deeply conditioned in you to be like things that they would hold you in like high esteem for,
Yeah.
like you don't get held in high esteem for being a fucking alcoholic womanizer in like normal society, like you just don't. It's actually contrary to that, like it's the opposite,
Do you think like a lot of the military and ex-army like obviously struggle with this? Like you can't be the only one. It must be common.
Nah, I think there's a choice that you make. A lot of my friends that I catch up with in military, some of them have chosen to move on and some of them are still military. Like, so you can choose, I suppose, at some stage that you want to leave that behind and you don't, although you look back on those times fondly about the gifts and some of the challenges that you had during that time, you're actually making an effort to assimilate and be like a normal society person, I suppose. You're actually making headway there, or you're going to struggle in that assimilation process of coming back out of the military. If you don't let the military go, then you're always going to be military. You're going to be a military person trying to live in a normal society. You've actually got to let it go and assimilate and drop some of those behaviors and stuff away in order to, be a better person for society, I suppose. Those skills and that brotherhood served you while you're in the military, and I can see completely why they would want you to behave like that, but they aren't skills that we really need in society. I mean more the negative side of it. We need more strong masculine men in society, absolutely. And they're the kind of dudes that if you want shit done, like, it's only a phone call away. And you need that sometimes, you need that ability to stand up for our rights as a community and stuff. It's important, but there's a negative side of that too, with the alcohol, the drugs, all the bravado, all of the ego kind of stuff. That is, until you can get that in check, you're not really going to assimilate back into normal society very well.
Yeah. And can you talk about, so in the military, did you go anywhere and like, I don't know, did you shoot guns? Was there any shooting people? I don't know if you want to go into it, but
it's funny. I like went over to East Timor a couple of times. I've been on Christmas Island for nearly 3 years, intercepting all the illegal immigrants, and I got out about 6 months before they all went to Iraq and Afghan and stuff like that. So I would have loved to have done that trip, but speaking to my mum, she's pretty happy that I didn't do the trip. So absolutely. It's like, yeah, it's just a choice. I didn't realize when I was getting out, that's what I would miss out on. And to be truthful with you, like East Timor was a good experience. yes, there was exchanges of fire and stuff like that. There was, you know, arresting people. There was, you know, digging dead bodies out of wells and stuff like that in small, like there's things that you've seen that you can't unsee and things that happen that can't unhappen. But overall, like I look back on that, when we first went there, it was quite a shit fight. And all of the local people had left and gone out of the villages and into the jungle, basically. So we were able to go back in there and make their communities safe for them to come back into. And that's a good thing. And then, you know, 6 months later, looking at the second part of the tour, we were basically peacekeeping. So you weren't peacemaking anymore, you're actually peacekeeping. I mean, we used to wake up in the morning and the local village would come and sing to us and bring you breakfast, and we'd play soccer with the kids during the day. Like, we were there for hearts and minds, you know, at the end of it. So it's nice to look back at those photos and see at the start how much of a shit fight it was that we walked into. And then obviously it was nice to see at the end how much difference that you had made together with all the other people that served there in creating some stability back to that area, you know? So it was nice.
Yeah.
Boat trip, like intercepting all the illegal immigrants, that was really hairy. Like, that was like scary shit. We used to do it at nighttime. We'd jump on at nighttime on these boats, and then they would just fucking tee off on you because you were freaking them out, you know, like, and they probably knew that once we had caught them, then they were getting sent back to where they come from and escorted back. So we learned to do it better. We learned to do it like just as the sun was coming up in the morning so we could see. We learned different safety protocols that made it safer. But I mean, we were trying to jump on boats when the waves were like 4, 5, 6 meters high. So you were here at one stage, and then you had this ladder you were climbing on, and then all of a sudden you're like up here with a wave and you're fucking hanging off the side. Like, some of the shit was just dangerous and like hairy. And I suppose a lot of the people that we had to confront were very angry. You know, they'd spent a lot of money and they'd probably risked everything to be where they were, only to be stopped and turn around and escorted back out of Australian waters to fuck knows what. Like, I still think about it to today, where did we send some of those families and people, you know? And a lot of the time we were with that boat for like 2 weeks, you know, escorting it back out of Australian waters. So we used to take snacks over and board games and play with all the kids and stuff, like to try and make it, you know, as nice and a humbling experience for them as possible, you know? But, you know, it escalated quite quickly on a lot of occasions. Yeah, there was some pretty hairy shit that happened when you jump on a boat and people don't want you on that boat, you know, and they realize that they're going back to somewhere that they've just spent all of their resources and everything. And some of those are, you know, they're not going back to a very nice place. And I try not to think about that.
Yeah. So, what was the hardest moment in the military? So it could have been maybe your personal life coming through, maybe it was something to do with the military. What was the hardest time?
Well, I think on tour of East Timor, the reason why I went and came back and then went back again was actually because my son passed away while I was away. So that would be the hardest thing that I've had to deal with in my life. And it was probably the trajectory to all of the next phase of my life with the drugs and all of that kind of stuff. So up until then, it didn't really play much of a part. And that happened to me when I was like 21. So I came back to Australia and went through all of that process. And, you know, I was married at the time. We decided to have a little girl, which is like my daughter now, who's 22 years old now, or 21. Yeah, it's horrific. Like, it's not so much what happened. I can look back on that now and yeah, there's some tears and some pain that will still be there and probably there forever. What's really sad is to see how my life changed from that moment onwards and all the things that I did to myself to try and avoid that pain, you know? And it was only probably until about 5 or 6 years ago that I decided to start delving into some of that stuff and start taking a bit of ownership about where my life was and making some big changes, you know, to being open to want to heal those parts and be open to wanting to share those parts of my life that you had kept buried and compartmentalized inside, and you had just pretended that you were all of the other things, so no one would know that about you, it was hidden in the darkness.
Yeah, that's fucking heavy. So you were 21. How old was your son?
He was 11 months old. So, yeah, some freaky numbers. You know what I mean? He was born on the 11th of the 11th and he died on the 10th of the 11th, exactly 11 months later. And he was 11 months old. Yeah. It's like I look back on it now and just see it very differently how I did at the time. But how I did at the time was fucking, it hurt. And I think it's taken me a really long time to want to open up my heart again and be vulnerable to being hurt like that ever again. I think it was very easy to just shut those walls down. And in all of my relationships after that point until a few years ago, I didn't really give a fuck whether I lived or died, Aaron. I didn't care whether, I hurt people. Like, it just didn't matter to me. I didn't care because I'd closed that part off of myself. I hadn't opened up to anyone, at all. I just left it all buried inside.
Yeah. Fuck. It makes a lot of sense. You're already in the military. You're already disconnecting from emotions. Then the thing that you love the most passes away, and that would have been the last bit of vulnerability that you probably would have had inside of you. So that makes a lot of sense that you would have closed your heart after that. So to deal with that, talk me through how you dealt with that after. So you said there was drugs and partying. How'd you
just party? That's all I did. I just eventually my daughter was born. The relationship was hard. You know what I mean? It was really, I thought that maybe another child would bring us closer together, but it actually didn't. It brought us further apart, and she wanted to move back to her family in Melbourne, and she didn't know whether she really wanted to be with me. And I didn't really, I just wanted to go out and get fucked up and not be responsible, for this new child coming in. It was hard for me to bond and have a relationship when it was challenging, I remember picking up my daughter and my wife at the time just yelling at me like, "You're not fucking picking her up right here. Give her here." You fucking because she's just scared, right? Like, she's just scared that anything we do could end up in this child having the same result as the last one. And it was just, it was a challenging environment for both of us, so we ended up moving apart and I ended up on my own again. And I suppose when you're newly single, you do what newly single people do. You go out and party and run amok. But I probably took it a bit too far, I just, for that period of time before I got out the military was full on. There was a lot of things that were happening. I remember taking steroids and started doing weights with one of my mates in the army, and I loved it. I loved being bigger. I love the attention that it gave me from women. That was attracting to me. It's nice to notice the difference between being skinny maybe and then just filling out a t-shirt, and then how much extra attention that gives you at the pub and club. It's just, it's addictive to a young person, and I found I just went off on that trajectory where that outward validation, where the drugs and partying and stuff like that was just my escape, I suppose. Yeah, it just, not that it made you feel good the next week. You had to deal with the come down and all of that associated stuff. But for that moment in time, when you're out getting attention, when you're out, popping pills and dancing all night and stuff, I was fucking living my best life, and just leaving all that other pain and stuff behind. Yeah. So I don't regret any of that, but I can see why I did it and what happened, now.
Yeah. So how old were you until you started, when you got out of the military, how old were you? And why did you get out of the military?
I was 28, I reckon. 27, 28. And to be truthful, there's not a lot of people that know this, but I remember one of my bosses coming into me one day and he was like, I've just told my boss that I've raided your room, and I told him that I found nothing. And I used to go running with this gentleman, so he protected me because there was stuff in my room, so I thought I was getting away with it, as in like the steroids, but people notice I went up like 3 shirt sizes in 6 months. Like you go for, like you're going and getting, people notice that you go from doing 5 chin-ups to 55, like it's fucking, you go from running like, you go from running, like 22-minute 5-kilometer runs to doing them in under 18 minutes. People are like, this is fucking superhuman. But in an environment that I was in the military, that was praised. People didn't give a fuck how you got there. You just were there. You were one of the fittest people in that group, so you were held in such a high esteem. So for a lot of the time, the behavior goes unchecked. No one really comes in and goes, hey, fucking, like, you should pull your head in, bro, like, because everyone's noticing. Like, no one notices. Like, everyone allows it. Like, it's in an environment where that sort of shit, the fitter you are, the stronger you are, the harder you can punch, the more dudes you take out, the more chicks you fuck, the more drink that you consume, the better person you are. Simple. Yeah. The more the more high you're held in this brotherhood. So it's very hard to like catch yourself or how other people around you suggest to you that is an unhealthy masculine trait, like, because it's hard. Like everyone in there loves that shit.
Yeah. And so you were 28 when you left?
Yeah. And I continued that behavior when I got out. I didn't want to. I got out because it had been noticed in the military and I didn't want to change. I was like, I was still young enough to try something new, I thought, as well. And because I'd served overseas, I think at that time, most people that served overseas in the military, that's the pinnacle of what you've been training for, right? Like, so you'd already gone and served your country on a couple of occasions. You've got medals, you've kind of got that tick in the box where all this training that I've done has led me to that. And it was a great experience. And it's like, okay, so what's next? And the military are great. They pay for a career transition, so they don't want you to get out and be unemployed. So while I was in, they paid for my PT course. So I just went and did my PT course and I left as a PT. So that kind of then flowed into what would then be the next 10 or 15 years of my life.
Yeah. So then you got into that. You were still partying, obviously, and obviously that was a way of dealing with probably the death of your son and some other things, possibly. But
yeah, possibly, yeah.
So you did that, and so you opened a gym, yeah? So tell us about all that and bodybuilding.
Yeah. Well, I kind of like started off managing gyms for people because of my boot camp skills. That kind of pushed me right up to being very employable and probably highly looked at in the fitness industry. It was nice. I used to qualify other trainers to teach boot camp as well. As a part of like the SA registrating body that they used to have before Fitness Australia. I forget what they're called, but like I think they were Rec SA maybe or something like that. So I used to do that, met a lot of people in the fitness industry, made my way up from managing gyms to owning my own PT studio until eventually opening up my big main gym that I had in Port Adelaide, which is now the Derrimits in Port Adelaide upstairs across from the council building. So I was just, I don't know, I call that phase of my life, the bit of the destruction phase, like where I didn't really fucking give a shit, like I said, about anything. At most points in my life, there's been a lot of points in my life where I've had to pull myself up because I believe that if I died, that I would be reunited with my son again, like I get to see him again. And then I had my daughter and stuff, and my family back here that, they would have fucking missed me too, like, so I've had to dance in between that. And also I think coming from the military, you're a high achiever. So because I was a high achiever, people didn't really notice the cracks. Like you were out on the weekend partying, but I was still up at Monday morning at 6 a.m. running boot camp on the beach. Yeah, I felt like shit, but because you were fit and because you could handle and you had all those disciplinary things of turning up on time and showing up even if you felt like shit, no one really seen the cracks. You know what I mean? They just didn't pick up on it. So the behavior was then allowed to just flow through. Even though I was this successful person, there's this like undercurrent of fucking shit behavior that ended up the demise of like that new relationship, my second marriage, and put me in a position where I lost all of that. You know, I lost the gym, you know, I lost that marriage. I had to turn around one day and say that that's it. Like the drug taking stops. I don't want to do this anymore. You know, I've caused myself enough pain. Like I just want it to stop. And I suppose once I stopped and I made that decision, everyone around me that was around you for the person that you were before now is not there to support you anymore. Like they don't want to change. They don't want to be a part of your change. They're actually happier, you know, with the other Rob. You know, they don't want to be a part of the new Rob. So it all had to break down. And what if I look back on it now, what a fucking beautiful, humbling experience to have the shit kicked out of you and be it fucking, you know, in this hole and this dark fucking hole and just get to, you know, I remember a point I was laying on the couch just in tears. I had like a 3-day bender and I'd fucking wasted all my cash. Didn't even know how I was going to pay fucking rent. Wasted all my cash on drugs and pokies and shit. And I was laying there just going, just fucking take it all away. I don't even know who I was talking to. I was just like, I promise you, if you take all of this away, like all of it, like I'll never, ever be that person ever again. Like I'm making a promise to you that I never want to feel this way. I never want to act in the same way. I don't know what it is that I want to do. I just want it all fucking gone. And no shit, within 3 months, I lost my gym through the divorce proceedings. It all just went bang, 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 like fucking dominoes. And I was left with nothing. I ended up out on a mine site working as a PT for a couple of years, which was great. I was able to get myself financially back on my feet. But yeah, like fuck, left some destruction, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hurt people, you know, people that you owe money to, that you made promises to, you know, like there's all of that in the past, you know. That still is a process in forgiving myself for, you know, just striving to be a better person and understand and learn from all of those things so that I don't make the same mistakes again as I'm moving forward in life, you know?
That's huge. You had that moment that you were wishing it all went away and it fucking went away. What talk me through, because you said you made a decision, right? Before, what was the decision you made and why did you come to the decision that things needed to change?
I just think things got out of control in my last relationship with drugs and all the other behavior that we were doing in that relationship. And it wears you down, you know what I mean? Like, because it isn't really who you are. It's just who you've become, you know? Like you know, deep down that isn't the way that you would like to show up. You know, some of the things that you're doing and hurting people and hurting yourself is not actually aligned with who you are at like your soul level, you know, like it fucking hurts your soul being like that. And I spent a lot of years on the roids getting tattooed and building up this fucking hard exterior so people would leave me the fuck alone, Aaron. You know what I mean? Like, and they did. People would leave me the fuck alone. And that's exactly what I wanted them to do because I was this hurt little boy inside that had his fucking heart broken, you know, and he didn't have the people around him or the skills and knowledge and tools to fucking walk through that process. So, you know, yeah, it's just that moment where you're like, I fucking don't know what I need to do from here, which is scary, but I can't keep fucking living like I'm living now because it's killing me. You know, and I deserve better than that. I am better than that, you know, and just being able to bravely fucking walk away from all of those things, you know, that relationship, the people that aren't going to serve me, you know, moving forwards, they all had to be cut away. And it's it's a fucking scary thing, but it's also like, I look back on it now as the best thing that I ever did. It's brave as fuck. You know what I mean? To make that decision and just be like, I'm out. Don't give a fuck what all yous do, but I'm now just going to look after me. And I need to deal with this. I need to process these emotions. Like, I need to understand myself better. I need to be a better person for my daughter and my family. And like, I want to attract someone better in my life that actually, like, you know, loves me for me. Like, I deserve that. I want all of these things, but I'm not getting any of those things in my current situation. So it needs to end, you know?
That's powerful. That's fucking powerful. Hey, it takes big balls to do that. And as you were talking, a question popped up was,
Yeah.
you lived this life building this external, like, you know, the bodybuilding, the tats, the money, the success, whatever, all these external things. How scary was it when you pushed all that away? And did you see you stopped getting that attention externally? And was that scary? And how did you deal with that?
It's a good question, and I've never even asked myself that. The relationship that I'm in now, and the people that I have now, and the relationship with my daughter and my parents and my friends and stuff like that, it's worth it. I don't get the outward validation for all of the things that aren't me. I actually get the validation for just being me, for being a fucking good person, you know, and leading from the heart and doing the things that I do now, and aligning myself with photography and coaching and stuff. Like, it's a different kind of validation. It's a validation for actual, like an alignment kind of validation, and who you really are is coming through. I feel like I'm actually like a 15-year-old boy now, where I actually get to create, you know, what I want my life to look like, you know, after all of that conditioning. And it's nice to, I don't know, see that before, you know, just because I had fucking cool sneakers and I had, you know, a Mercedes and I had fucking cash and drugs on me and people wanted to be around me, I knew deep down that they didn't really like me for me. They only liked me for all the shit that I had that they could benefit from. It's very different to the relationships I have now. The relationships I have now is like a beautiful exchange, you know, and it's actually surrounding yourself with people that see you for who you actually are, and they want to be a part of your life, and they're the people cheering on the sideline when things are going good, but they're also there as a phone call and a reminder when you're not going well as well. You know, like the other relationships you have when everything's surrounded by, you know, all the materialistic shit, the relationships that you have are not that genuine, to be honest. Well, they weren't for me anyway. I can't say that for everybody because that's not true, but yeah.
So how do you
There's a
feel?
lot in there.
How do you feel that you spent a lifetime, almost, you know, 40 plus years, trying to be someone you're not to get the external validation, and now you've come to this point where you're realizing you're perfect the way you are, you're lovable the way you are, and you've got people validating that. What what has that done for you mentally, emotionally?
It makes me really emotional that I feel like for a lot of my life, I fucking wasted my life, you know, for the opinions of other people. You know, like I'd like to go back to that 15-year-old boy and just be like, you're okay, bro. Like you're awesome. You're good looking. You're fucking good at, you don't need to be anything more than what you are. Just be who you are. And if you want to be kinder and you don't want to do that to women, or if you don't want to go out and drink and take drugs, it's actually okay that you say no, because there's another whole group of people that, you know, will like you for being more higher in values and living by your morals and ethics and all of that kind of stuff. Because I mean, that's the true value of a healthy masculine, is someone that's actually living like that in alignment with all of those things. And I was so far away from that. It's taken a lot of work to relearn who I actually am. Because you know, when I decided to change, I didn't know who the fuck I was. I just went back to some of my root things. I sold my Mercedes. I went out and brought a V8 Ute and a dirt bike and a swag. And I literally just went out camping and fucking, what a beautiful thing, you know, just to go back to your roots of the things that you enjoyed when you were young and stuff that, you know, you thought that you needed a mansion in Henley Beach and a Lambo to fucking be successful. Like you didn't realize that actually, you know, enjoying the things that you enjoy is another form of success. It doesn't come with the high validation that the other things do in today's society, but it feels better in the body, you know, like it's nice because it's actually who you are. And I suppose from a dating perspective, when you talk to Megs and understand why she was attracted to me, she was looking at the change. She knew me before, the old version, and she was seeing all the shifts and changes of me becoming more of who I actually was. And those things, she imagined living her life with someone who lived their life like that. So that's where the alignment comes in with seeking the relationships that we truly desire, is actually like being more ourselves, actually, you know, because otherwise there's just this false bullshit. You know, I see lots of people break up all the time now, and I sit down and try and analyze that, and I'm like, it's because you don't know each other's past. You can pretend to be whoever the fuck you want on Tinder for like 6 months, and then the real you comes out, you know, like, and then they're like, oh, fuck this, and it doesn't work anymore. It's because people are just, you know, trying to pretend to be this person to get into relationships, to be liked and accepted and stuff, like I spent, you know, 30 fucking years doing. Like, and what I've learned is that actually it would have been more valuable for me to just be who I always was, because all of those really hard lessons come through that period of time when I wasn't in alignment with all of those things.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So you and Megs, let's talk about that. You've been with Megs for how long now?
Probably 3 years now, I suppose, coming up soon.
Yeah. And what's been the difference in this relationship to all your relationships in the past? Like, how have you been? How have you showed up differently? What's the difference?
Just being vulnerable, like, and admitting that I don't always have all the skills and knowledge to be able to be a good man, you know? So if I get angry, or if I'm a bit short, or if I shut down emotionally, I'm able to catch myself and go back, and I feel safe enough in that relationship to communicate and be like, you know, I'm sorry, I'm not handling this well, or like, you know, and I think in that vulnerability is where like the true relationship is blossom, because there is no mask. It's just who you are, a person that accepts you for the good, the bad, the ugly, as we've said before. Like, it's, you know, and there's this desire in me to be a good man, you know, that I know deep down I'm a good man. And through all of that, I just want to say, like, all of that process, I didn't really hurt other people. I wouldn't have been able to be a successful PT and have a gym and stuff if I wasn't a likable person. Like, I don't think I hurt other people. I hurt myself, like, through all of that process. You know, I was really doing the damage to myself more than anything else. So I suppose now in this relationship, I'm learning what a real relationship actually is, you know, that's not, it's the first probably real relationship that I've had where we've had to, you know, have the hard conversations. We've had to be a lot more team orientated and set personal goals for ourselves. And like, you know, when you felt like running, and we both felt like running, to actually turn around and come back together and being able to like say, this is what I really want to do, because it's my go-to from my past, and just being able to leave this because it's too hard and difficult and I don't have the skills to navigate through, and reach out and ask for help, actually, to people around us, to reach out for my partner for help. And I can tell you right now, that vulnerability there, in putting down the facade that everything is fucking perfect and good and whatever, you know, that surface level relationship of like, how are you? Yeah, I'm good. You know, everything's fine. You know, imagine digging a little bit deeper and being like, well, actually, like, our level of intimacy is not where I would like it to be. I'm not liking our financial situation at the moment. How do you feel about that? Like, all of these really hard questions, I have someone that's meeting me halfway, and she's learning too, because in her past relationship, she would have just run as well when things got hard. So we're both choosing to stay. We're choosing to have the hard conversations. And I suppose I either had never learnt that growing up in order to resolve conflict well, in order to communicate in a vulnerable way about a lot of things that I'm struggling with and not doing well with, admitting that I don't have the knowledge and tools in some areas and reaching out for external help with counselors or friends. I mean, we've done sessions together before, Aaron and Megan, the same. There's, going and having people in your reality that you can reach out to and say, hey, like, I'm not doing well with this situation. This is how I see it. How do you see it, to give me a different perspective, and really going back into that relationship, not reacting to stuff, actually sitting with it, working through the emotions and the triggers, and actually responding in a way that a healthy person would.
Yeah.
It's nice.
It's massive that you guys are doing that. And you kind of said it like, well, I don't know if you said it, I think you did, but we don't learn this. Even if our parents are loving, my parents are loving too. But there was no intimacy, there was no connection, it was just old school, like where one works, there's no emotion. So we had no chance, even if our parents are loving, to form those intimate relationships. So looking back at your past, how were you going to know what to do in relationships and how to show up as a man and be vulnerable? Like, where did you ever see that?
Yeah, I suppose I looked at my dad, who was a really hard worker. So obviously you think you always have to work, and earn a money. They probably come from a background where those strict gender roles were in place, where mum stayed home or just had a part-time job, and she was responsible for cooking and cleaning and looking after the kids and stuff. So I suppose, I got modeled that in a way. In my marriage, who I had the 2 children too, we both worked. We were both in the military, actually. And then all of my relationships after that have been with really, really successful independent women. So you're able to break down that gender role and see the value of having, someone that has their own interests and work and money and whatever, and what that brings to the table. But I suppose where I didn't have the skills was in trying to control everything, I suppose, as a man, and feeling like that was my job, to always just make the decision without really consulting the other person and looking at that like a team. Shutting down emotionally, not being able to talk, as in silent treatment, like getting angry, those kind of things, like as something that I obviously seen my dad do, like when he was upset at mum, he just didn't speak to her, and sometimes for weeks. I mean, it's not just like a day or two, like it was just horrible. And you think that's what you need to do to get the other person to say sorry, to do what you want them to do. You don't realize it's actually a team, and it's like, hey, I see this situation like this. I don't really like what happened. Like, how was it for you? And you're like, oh, I didn't really see it like that. And it's all right. So how do we compromise and move forwards, so that we don't have that come up again? Like, it's skills that I've had to, learn externally that I didn't have even in all the men growing up through the military. No role models as football coaches and stuff I either wasn't watching and I wasn't learning, or I didn't have them, because obviously I found myself at a point in time where I lacked all of those skills that is required of a modern man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's why it's inspiring to watch you, because of your background and the military and like your past. You had no chance of being this vulnerable guy living from his heart. How the fuck are you going to be that when you haven't been modeled that anywhere? So that's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on, because I've seen you open your heart and like really shift, and it's inspiring for men to do that. Like, that's what I fucking love seeing. I don't care anyone's past. If you've got a past and you're growing from that and you didn't have a model, that's super inspiring. In your relationship, how does it feel to be vulnerable to your partner and her, or show the parts of you that you think weren't worthy, and her still love you? Like, what's that doing to you, knowing that you can show up? You thought you couldn't show up like this in the past, but you're starting to learn there's a woman that you can show up to. You don't always have to be this masculine, I've got everything figured out dude. You can actually be not figured out sometimes. You don't know what the fuck's going on sometimes, and she's still loving you. What does that do for you?
I think it's just slowly just healing my heart, and allowing you to take down that armor just like little bit by little bit. I find I can shut still quite quickly, but I'm learning to like just step in, because when you step in, it's being like held as a safe place by somebody else, whereas obviously military and in my past, like in other relationships and stuff, saying anything like that would have been manipulated and used against you, and you got made to feel less than by being honest and truthful about your shortcomings as a man. It's nice that that vulnerability doesn't get shut down. There has to be that safe place in order to grow that vulnerability, and I know that eventually will get me to the depths of the relationship that I've always desired, but didn't have the skills and knowledge and tools to know how to get it.
Yeah, that's huge.
And you might have got it from out, oh, she's hot, you're hot, and it's like, yeah, well, let's snort some lines of coke together and fuck, and then it's like, oh, well, that was pretty good. Let's hang out for like 3 or 4 months, and then like fucking, like that's not. As much as that was fun for that portion of your life, you're not going to find, someone that's meeting you, and there's not that level of conscious relationship at that stage. That boy, that, operating from that boy psychology, like you have to grow the fuck up at some stage, and you have to take some ownership, and, you might be desiring things like that at that stage, but your behavior doesn't match. You can't be going out behaving like that and expect to attract someone that's willing to be vulnerable in that dance of that relationship as well.
That's a good point. You're attracting who you're becoming, so that's a big thing. So let's talk about what you do now. So now you're a coach, you're a photographer. Like, what do you do now?
I probably mix in between both of those. Funnily enough, the photography stuff, I was always good at it at school, always had a passion for it. Meg's brought me a camera like only a couple of Christmases ago now, like a good digital camera, and I started going out taking photos. A good friend asked me to shoot her event, and I was like, I don't fucking know how to shoot an event. She's like, your photography's great, you'll be fine. I remember for the first hour of it, they were all shit. Every single photo was fucked, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do here. And I just pulled myself back inside, and I was like, just go in and have fun with it, because you're only learning. No one expects you to be good at this. Like, just go do it. And from that moment onwards, it kind of just grew from there. It turned from a hobby to a plan B to literally at the moment, like, I was tossing up, what do I create a website? And I was like, I don't really coaching so much. I love it. But like photography, actually, like the difference in how that feels in my body from when I'm coaching compared to going out and shooting, it's chalk and cheese. Coaching, if you do too much, obviously that it can be quite draining emotionally, and takes a lot from you, whereas photography is my freedom. It's like, it's like my creative little thing where I get to go out and meet people, like at a wedding and stuff, like, and you have a couple of wines, and it's a really good social thing, and you're there capturing it and getting paid for it at the same time. So it's like, it's, who would have thought? Like if you'd asked me 5 years ago where you're going to be in 5 years, I would never have said a photographer. It wasn't even on the radar, but I love it, and it's getting better and better and better to the point where, like when we were PTs, if someone walked in and they had a whole swag of injuries and stuff, and they tried a lot of other PTs before, I knew that I had the skills and knowledge and tools to be the best PT for them. Like, there come a point in your career where, you're able to like dance in that, like you actually had everything you needed to be good at what you're doing. So I'm just picking up all those skills, and it's becoming seamless, you know, like I think the shooting's good now. Now I need to learn the editing side, which is a whole nother side like to go into. And I'm thinking the next 2 or 3 years, if you just keep developing those skills, you could make a fun living that gives me the freedom that I desire, but it also pays well to give my family security and stuff as well. So it's nice to, yeah, step into something like that. And as much as that's a risk, it might not pay out like that. That's okay. I'm willing to give it a couple of years to see how it goes. So, yeah.
You're very, very good at photography. I'm not just saying that. You are very good. I think also because you can be a bit of a perfectionist, so you like things. You're very fucking good. So, you know, you're onto it.
Exactly. Yeah. I think sometimes you just have like an eye for it. I think my mum, she was very crafty as a kid. Like could make, knit, sew, like anything, like design wise. I've always had a passion for interior design. If you've ever walked into any of my houses, everything's squared off and it's got beautiful plants and open light. And it's like nice everything. I used to get criticized before it when I was younger because a lot of that can be seen as like gay traits. You know, I've even had my dad question my sexuality at some stage because you're walking around in like white sneakers with tight jeans and, you know, they're like, are you actually like girls? And I'm like, yeah, Dad. Oh, yeah, like, it's all right. You don't have to worry about it. Like,
that's hilarious.
But I love that side of me. Like, and I think because photography allows that side of me, that feminine, that creative, that flowy kind of like job. You know, the social side, the social interaction of it and everything just suits my personality. And I think I'm good at it because all of the other skills that I've got all in the rest of my jobs, to be able to go into a group of people that you've never met before and be able to mix and mingle with them and make friends with them and make them feel, you know, like, you know, safe and make them feel like you're professional and you're going to do a good job for them. You're able to develop that trust and rapport quite quickly in situations that most people, they could be a good photographer, but socially they're not able to just do that. You know, like there's a whole swagger skills, I suppose, that it really suits, you know, the skills that I picked up in my past and, you know, the things that I would like in my future, which is something that pays well, that's consistent, and it offers me freedom that I can, you know, not have to work a 9-to-5 job, you know?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So, what's the one thing you're most proud of?
I think my relationship with my daughter. Yeah, I'm most proud of not having always been there for her, but owning that, and becoming who I need to be a safe place for her, you know, and that's lovely. Like every time I think about that, it brings tears to my eyes because, yeah, at some stage I had to put that first, you know, that when you're a dad, when you're a role model for other people, like you at some stage have to it's not about you anymore. It's about them and what you need to be to provide, you know, the stuff that they need to be a good human being as well. So I'm glad that I'm the first person that she would call when something happens, you know. It's a nice feeling to spend time with someone who's not a baby anymore and they're an adult, and we both like value that relationship, you know. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And for anyone that has, you know, kids and stuff that are still young and they're struggling with that relationship, just that's what it turns into, you know. It turns into this beautiful adult relationship where you listen and hold space and you're both each other's like safe place to go to, you know. And it's lovely. And I wasn't always her safe place, you know. I was the dad who had money, it brought her shit, but, you know, I wasn't giving her my presence and time. So I'm proud that I can, you know, not so much be the dad that gives her all the money and shit. I'm actually the dad that she always needed, and I'm able to give her presence and time, you know.
That's beautiful. That's
yeah.
amazing. I love that. And You said it before, but we'll repeat it. If your 15-year-old version was right next to you right now, what
Yep.
would you tell him? What would you give him? What does he need?
Um, yeah, we say it all the time. You are already whole, beautiful, and complete. You know, like although you may feel like there are things missing in your life, life is working for you, not against you. So just trust that you don't need to pretend to be anything more than what you are to be successful in this world. Actually, quite the contrary. The more unique you are, and you are unique because you're your only you. You don't need to, change who you are in order to fit into these groups to be something that is being held in such high esteem that you may feel like you're not. Actually, just be you, because the world needs more of people that are just uniquely themselves, And the more you do that, the more you give permission to everyone else to step away from those old fragments of society that condition that behavior, especially in men, that hardness, that non-emotional person, while he's still being validated for being the dude with a neck tattoo with a pocket full of coke slamming all the chicks in the nightclub. Like that needs to change, yeah, don't be fooled. You know what I mean? Don't be fooled into believing that that's better than what you have now, because it's not true. I know where that road ends, and that road ends in a lot of pain and a lot of distance that you have to make up to come back to the person who you truly are inside. And that's hard work.
That's fucking wise words, I'll tell you that. Really
Yeah.
wise. Yeah, thank you. Where can people find you? Your coaching, your photography, like where do you want people to go?
Probably like Instagram's easy. Facebook, it's like Robert Lee Coach or Robert Lee Photography. Like either one of those two are fine. I'm finding, I'm getting contacted by a lot of women who want relationship stuff with their partners, which is just a funny pull. You know what I mean? It's like, as I spend more time with women, you're actually that safe masculine person that they would like to their own partners to be more like. So they just want to put you in their proximity. But again, as a coach, you send them the costings of those and like, not that you get ghosted, but it's like, oh yeah, I'll get back to you kind of thing. So I'm thinking of running maybe some 4-hour, like half-day retreats or something for couples. I really think I'd like to go back and study youth work or something like that next year and start working with younger men. I don't really know what I want to do. I love photography. I obviously love passing on my skills that I've had to learn the hard way to other people, to give them those little shortcuts in life, or at least a reminder that you can be that person and change anytime that you decide to. I love being that person for other people. But yeah, wherever all of that goes, I don't really know, but that's what I feel like I'd like to do. I want to work with young men. I love the fact that I've been able to do a lot of my work in my relationship. Like a lot of the growth and change has happened in the last 3 years, and being supported like that in your relationship. So passing that on so other couples can benefit of how we actually were able to do that, so they can navigate through some of the places where they're stuck. It's beautiful. It's a gift, It's nice to be able to hold that space for people. It's a nice place to be. I can't complain. I love my life. So
that's amazing. And if I got one more question, so it just slipped my mind. It slipped my fucking mind. Hang on, where is it? Okay, here it is. So if this was the last, I don't know, if this was the last day on Earth, and this is the last message you had for the world, what would you tell the world? What would your last message be?
I'd be like, all of these fragments of society are bullshit. The government structure, the world in which we live in, where power, control, and money is most important. and the distance in which we found ourselves away from looking after the planet and being community-based and living in such a way that doesn't cause us pain, either to the environment that we live in or pain to ourselves that we've created through stress and anxiety and the need to be keeping up with the Joneses and stressing yourself out with all the financial stuff and the houses and cars and holidays and trips in order to just be the measure of success that society currently puts to us. It's all bullshit. The pendulum has swung too far this way, and I just want you to be aware that the pendulum's coming back the other way, where we're going back. We're actually going back, and we're starting to clean up the oceans. We're starting to think about what we put in our bodies. We're starting to be more community minded. We're starting to break down the old fragments of relationships we're starting to work through all the generational trauma and conditioning. It's a beautiful time to be here. And I know that I've chosen to be here during this time, and we actually get to recreate what it is to be a healthy masculine man, a healthy feminine woman, what a healthy relationship looks like, how to raise children mindfully so that we don't cause them the same trauma and conditioning that we had. The world is becoming more aware, and it's moving really quickly. And I love being here at this time, and I love being a part of the change.
Yeah, fuck, that's so true. Actually, about the pendulum, I definitely agree with that. I love that.
Yeah,
amazing. All right, well, thank you for jumping on, being vulnerable, telling your story. It's fucking very inspiring, and
my pleasure, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate you, and hopefully I'll get you back on again.
Yeah, sounds good. I appreciate you too. Even if you just want to pick one of those things, we could pick one of those things to pieces for an hour easily.
I could go on another 2 hours, but I try to keep it under an hour.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, take it easy. Thank you.
All right, well, I miss you, bro. Hope you come back safely soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I know that this journey's been, it's important for your growth. So
yeah.
Can't wait to meet the new version of you when you get back. So it'd be cool.
100%. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks for watching this episode of Hearts of Men. I really appreciate it. If you could give back and give a like, a comment, a share, a review on any of the platforms you're watching on, that would really help me get my message out to more men. If you don't follow me on socials, please follow me, Aaron Cartwright, All Things Healing on Instagram and Facebook. Thanks, guys. See you on the next episode.